Hi, Math 8. We are going to skip section 2.3 and go right to 2.4. But even in 2.4, we do not have to work with cones at all. And of course, we're not working with volume. So we're just going to do the surface area of a cylinder. Most of you have seen this before in grade 8, and you're pretty comfortable with it. I'll just reemphasize some things that are important. First of all, when you unwrap this cylinder, it's always important in your questions to note whether you need the top and the bottom circle when you're talking about the surface area of a cylinder. So in this question, they're going to do the whole thing. When you unwrap it, you get this rectangular shape with two circles. I call this the wrapping. If you think of it as being the wrapping of a soup can, that's your wrapping, and it's always in the shape of a rectangle. And then you have these two circles. So in your wrapping, of course, you have to have length times width because it's a rectangle. So you need to have the length or the base times the height. I don't care what you call it. So the height we have, we're just going to call it h. But when you think about how long this length is here, you have to remember that once wrapped around that circle, if you could put it back together, it would form a circular shape. Just take a paper and roll it up like a tube. That's what you're talking about. So this is actually what we call, this length is the circumference. Now it's unrolled, but it used to wrap around the circle. And we have a formula to find circumference. You could have known it as pi times diameter. But diameter is also known as 2 radii. So, 2 radii. So that's where they get this 2 pi r thing. This is actually also known as, well, that's confusing. You could take it apart and you would have the diameter times pi in there. So you can learn it as pi d, or you can do 2 pi r. Either way, to find the area of this rectangular surface, you need to have 2 pi r times the h. So this might be what you're used to seeing, or you might also know it as pi dh. It's exactly the same thing, just instead of 2 radii, I'm using the diameter instead. So the 2 pi r squared, that's the area of a circle. You have to recall that the area of a circle is pi r squared, and you have 2 of them in this case. So we have 2 pi r squared, and then we add the lateral side, or the wrapping portion, which is the rectangular, which is length times width. We don't need to talk about volume. So there's the formula if you want a formula, but you do need to understand what the 2's stand for. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2 pi r squared plus pi dh. And this 2 is because that's talking about the 2 circles that are involved. So don't forget that if you're not doing the top, or you're doing a garbage can or something that doesn't include the lid, you would not put the 2 in front. These are for 2 circles. Okay, so you keep track of which is which. All right, so when we just give questions, it says find the surface area with a radius of 4 and a height of 6. You can literally put the radius in here. Every time there's an r, you put a 4. Don't forget to square this first. Don't times it by 2 or by pi without squaring it first. Put your 6 in for your height. Do the math and you'll get it. You don't need to do volume or cones. So what I'm going to take you to do right now is I'm going to do a couple questions so that you understand how to find the surface area. So let's go to the homework section. I'm going to do question 1 for you, and you can do some of the other ones. So it's all colored in, which means we have to find it all. So the formula for surface area is 2 pi r squared plus pi. I'm going to use pi dh because that's most common for what you have learned. Simply plug in the numbers. 2 pi, the radius is 4. So over here, the radius has to be 8, and the height is also 8. Type that math in, you'll get it. It's that simple. Okay, so not too hard. On question B and D, some of these questions that have holes inside, you're going to drop that shape into a bucket of paint. So when you find the surface area on part B, for example, you're going to have to find the surface area of the rectangular box. You're going to have to subtract the 2 end circles where the holes are, but you will have to add in the wrapping paper on the inside. So let's just do that one more time. You're going to have to find the complete surface area of the box, subtract the two end circles that are gone, that are missing, but you will have to add in the inside of that tube because that's going to be painted when you're done. So let's just work it out. So let's do the surface area of the box first. So we're going to have a 10 by 6. How do I know that's 6? Because these little marks here that you see on here indicate that those are the same all the way around. So I'm going to have 10 by 6. And how many of those sides will I have? It looks like I'll have 4 of them. I believe so. And then I will have the two ends. So this end, which is 6 by 6. And I have 2 of those. So that makes 72. So my whole box without any holes in the side, in the ends, is 312. But now I need to subtract the pi r squared. That's the area of a circle. And I have to subtract 2 circles. So I'm going to go find 2 pi r squared. And I'm going to subtract those numbers. So my 2 times my pi, my radius is 1.5. And I have to square that. So I'm going to square my 1.5 first. Get my answer, times it by pi, and then times it by 2 because there are 2 circles. So I'm going to subtract 14.14. So my total surface area of the outside surface is 297.86. But when you dip this shape into the paint, now you have to think about what's painted. There would be holes in the end. You could stick your arm through it, but the inside of this shape would be painted. And the inside is the wrapping of a cylinder, if you think of it like that. So the inside, the inside is going to be, remember how we had this formula before? 2 pi r squared plus pi dh. Well, these are the 2 circles that I've actually subtracted in this case. And this was the wrapping, correct? Or the rectangular shape. So this is the part I need. I need the pi dh. So I'm going to go down here and go pi dh. So my pi is just pi. My diameter is actually 3. And the height of this is 10. So I have 30 times pi, basically. So I'll get 94. I'm going to add in 94.25. When I add those in, I get 392.11. Now I'm going to put my units down. It's area, so it's millimeters squared. So that should be your answer to question 1B. So kind of similar on part D. You'll have to go down and check those out. On part C, you'll have to think about all the circles that are missing. I might let you skip C, but on letter G, you have a trough looking thing. You have to think through all those questions. So I'll write those down in your classroom and we'll be away. We'll go from there.